minions, and welcome to unMadeGaming. We are here for another episode of The Seekers, in which we try to drive Johnny mad, as none of us have played the game that he's basing this off of, and we are winging it and making it up and massacring the lore. That being said, we are here with Johnny, aka Video Store Cowboy. We are here from Keith from Material Components. We are here from Sam the Wizened Fool. We are here from we are here with Kai, aka Stoneflag Kai. That being said, we'll turn things over to Johnny to take us right in to the world of Horizon Zero Dawn.
Previously on The Seekers. When Tues takes a discovered focus and places it to his ear, a voice from the past talks, documenting a moment. The voice is bitter, and Tues is left with an uneasy feeling. After sharing what he knows, Tues, Farah, and Tejak make their way out of the ruins to discover Aloy has found their fourth companion, Krona. A fast talker, Cronin had won himself a comfy space on the journey from Karja lands in a caravan and slept his way through the gate. Now, faced with the group, he discovers he may have gotten himself in over his head. The group now assembled, and each of them wearing a focus, Aloy demonstrates how the hunt for the machines has changed by wearing a focus. First demonstrating the tracking and the tagging of the machines, she then shows them how to discover the machines' weaknesses. Armed with this new knowledge and awareness, she unleashes them on a group of watchers, all except Krona, who's not a fighter and chooses to watch the fight from behind a tree. Machines dispatched, Aloy explains to them their next task as she moves back to the border of the Embrace. She needs to follow up on some news that there are some bandits hunting in the sacred lands. Deciding to rest for the night, the group settles into a Nora campfire and beds down. While a Nora brave tells a tall tale, Tejak creeps off to have a small exchange with his mentor, Silence. As Tejak fills him in, Silence encourages the Banuk shaman to continue his time with the group, or kill them if necessary. And we fade in as Tejak is returning to the campfire while Krona is telling his own tall tale. So, Krona, what is this tall tale that you are telling today?
Well, I think backing up to a couple steps, this guy who was telling a tale, I think as an audience member, Krona repeatedly keeps interrupting him and correcting and saying, "Oh, no, that is not the way that the eclipse was." And over the course of several minutes, repeatedly doing that. And then finally, in a moment of utter frustration, stands and just bellows in this booming voice, "You are a fool! Have you never told a story before?" And am activating a power of mind, powerful rhetoric. By declaring him a fool, he gets all of his social interactions hindered. So basically, he is having a harder time to convince over the crowd. And then I very quickly swoop in and start telling a tale of my own, which, I think is the tale of Aloy defeating Helis. I can't say this name.
Helis is correct. Helis is correct.
Helis is correct. Aloy? Whatever.
Okay.
That's how you pronounce it, New Taru tribe.
All right, so you're telling this tall tale of Aloy's exploits. What are you trying to gain by convincing this group of 4 or 5 others that you do not know that are also of the Nora tribe that this brave's tall tale is not really all that masterful? What is it that you're trying to accomplish there?
Steal the spotlight entirely.
Okay.
It's like everyone is listening to this guy, but they should be listening to Krona, really, because Krona is a storm speaker.
Farah, so as you're kind of watching
what that means.
Farah, as you're kind of noticing, you're kind of watching this exchange, and you're watching, Krona kind of just be animated. You're seeing that the other braves and Nora tribesmen that are there are all looking among themselves, thinking that this man is kind of a fool, and one of them is reaching for their blade. There's going to be trouble. What are you going to do?
I'm going to just lay my hand on his hand, the guy who's reaching for his blade, and just say, I don't think we need any trouble tonight. They're just fools around a fire.
looks in your eyes, realizes the intent of what you're saying, slides the blade back in, and then offers you a skin full of the local sort of brew, or like the local like distilled or fermented drink of some kind.
I'm going to no thank you, but thank you for the offer.
And the great brimstone hail down from the skies.
I think like when the guy puts his knife back, Tues like tries to meet Farah's eye like across the fire and just kind of gives like an up nod. He's like pretty impressed by what he's seen the last couple of days out of her, right? Like she like took down 2 of the machines in the last fight. Now she's like keeping everybody out of trouble. He's like, all right.
And I'll just nod back.
Okay, so as this exchange is happening, Tajak, you're kind of walking back up into the scene, which looks to be, a relatively sort of normal sort of exchange and circumstance. You're seeing each of your group members kind of executing their own sort of like intent in all of this. How are you approaching the group?
Casually and with great purpose. That's how Tajak does all his things. He is an emotionally void hat on the move. No, he just sort of wanders towards everybody in his like humdrum kind of mannerisms, and then he just casually lowers himself down into mushroom pose and squats down beside Tues and Farah. He says, "Oh, is this a show that we are watching?"
It is definitely a show of sorts.
I was gonna say something similar. It's something.
Krona is busy describing in great detail how radiant Aloy's hair is as she's like in the midst of the battle, and how Krona was hiding, basically. From the context, you guys can tell was hiding as this brimstone was falling and Aloy was rescuing everyone in the city.
He's definitely full of stories.
Is this a normal thing that your tribe takes place in, the stories of outsiders?
No, absolutely not.
Interesting.
Seems to have a way with words, so we allow him to speak.
Oh. Is the story accurate?
Is the story accurate?
Yes.
It's embellished.
Oh. And he just squats lower and watches. You assume.
Johnny, remind me, did we get told about the bandit mission yet? I know we vaguely heard about the bandits, but we didn't get told that we were going to deal with them, did we?
So as she told you that you needed to move on to sort of the scarred site where one of these corruptor machines that she had mentioned that was going to give you the override, the piece of hardware that you're looking for, she had said that she had to go while you were doing that. She had to go and check in at the border, at the main gates of the embrace to catch up on the news, essentially. So
got it.
Okay, so the tales begin to go long into the night as Krona finally taking a moment to breathe. Another brave, a woman, steps up and tells her tale of fighting the gigantic Thunderjaw that had crashed through under the control of the Eclipse and had attacked the entrance to All Mother, which is the temple where the deity of the Nora supposedly lives. And at that mention of that, Farah, you're having flashbacks of an incredible battle where there was lots of it was essentially the last stand of the Nora until Aloy arrived, and many of your friends and tribesmen fell there. And so the sort of the flashback, the memory of that fight just in that on that plateau, just beyond the entrance of the temple, it gives you a dark mood as everybody begins to settle in for sleep.
I'm going to get up and just search for any unused furs, and being kind of a nurture healer, I'm going to cover up maybe some of the sleeping Nora with extra furs and just make sure everybody's in order, motherly. Like,
Okay.
I think Taz probably volunteers to take the first watch. So he's probably staying up and just kind of keeping a lookout.
So as one of the Braves notices what you're attempting to do, he steps up and he says, "We're in the embrace. The machines here are relatively docile. They will not impede us in our sleep. Please trust our warriors." And he looks to Farah and he says, "Please explain to him that things are not, we're not in danger anymore."
Teas, I think it's okay here. We're fine, and you can rest.
He will kind of shrug. I'll just be like, not going to be able to sleep for a little while anyway, but fair enough. If it'll make you more comfortable, I'll go lay down.
I think it respects the warriors to trust them.
Of course. Morale is important. Just kind of wanders off, finds somewhere to lay down.
As you guys wander back and forth, laying blankets down and deciding watches, you kind of just pass by Tajak and you just hear from under the hat.
Is he sitting up straight, or is he crouched down in sort of that weird sort of standing position, crouched standing, but sleeping?
Yeah, he's in full Slav squat, just.
Somebody push him over. Somebody just tip him over.
And you can see every once in a while the wires and cables sort of flutter.
Teas, I think that Tajak's snoring will keep anything away as well.
He just laughs, gives a nice long chuckle, and as he's getting the sleeping arrangements together.
I think as you're bedding in to go to sleep, Krona starts telling the tale of the robots that we defeated earlier that day, and is providing great embellishment to make you guys sound way more epic than you actually were, though at the same time undercutting Teos's role in it a little bit. It was actually we're superimposed where Teos actually was hiding behind a tree and Krona was climbing on top of the robot.
Krona, I think it's time to rest. We've heard some good stories, but we need sleep.
Okay, so everybody eventually beds down, and for the night, and it's mostly a peaceful evening. Again, talk of the Thunderjaw attacking Allmother causes various members of the Norrs to the tribe to waken occasionally, and there's maybe a little bit of crying. You've experienced this yourself, Farah. It's just the battle scars and the emotional impact of having most of the tribe basically decimated. But finally, you're able to get restful sleep. And as the morning begins to awaken, just before first light, the birds begin to start, making their noise, and various critters are beginning to kind of move around. A herd of striders with watchers are moving off in the distance, not even getting anywhere close to approaching the fire. Each of you wakes at your own time and leisure.
Oh man, I think Teos is up early. He would maybe help get the cook fires ready and everything if they'll let him. If they won't, he'll just kind of sit there patiently.
Feyre's up early as well, helping getting the fires ready. Picking up any kind of bedding.
Yeah, I think Krona probably sleeps in pretty late. As established earlier, Krona was asleep when you guys were in the first session, so he was
storm dreams, man. They take
the storm dream. They do. They take a lot of effort to storm dream.
Does Krona remove his embellished robe, or does he sleep in that too?
I feel like Krona has like a staff that he uses to pitch like a tiny little tent with his cloak. They're like nomadic people, right? The Utaru and Plains people. So I think it might be kind of like a pup tent. Doubles as a jingly pup tent.
All right. So Krona's, occasionally you can hear a little bit of jingle coming from Krona's little tent, sort of, as he tosses and turns and does what he's doing as the rest of you are kind of waking up. You see the Braves all beginning to put their various packs and gear on themselves as they move off. Feyre, they wave to you and say, "Off to the hunt." And you see them moving off together as a group towards that herd of machines, both Striders and Watchers.
I'm just gonna let them go and continue getting our stuff ready for everyone. Maybe I'm gonna go jingle Krona's tent and just like shake it to wake him up.
Is Tajak still sleeping?
Mm-hmm.
I'll just walk over and just tip him over. Oh, that's impressive.
I think Krona is mostly startled when awoken, but immediately is like one of those people that just wakes up and then is immediately on, is just like roaming around and like just talking to people as they're trying to break camp, is just like chattering and kind of just a pain in the ass all around, but is immediately a personality on.
Yeah, I mean, Taz is just gonna keep like trying to like wake Tajak up, just like pushing him and like, hey.
What is it?
It's time to wake up.
Is it?
Yeah.
Do we have something to do?
Well, we were told what we were supposed to do yesterday.
So then we're leaving right now.
We're getting ready to.
Oh.
Correct.
Well, then I'm ready. And he sort of rights himself and squats back down. See me when you are.
Good.
I just picture all shamans as lazy until they need to be utilized to
in
hear the
that
machine
case,
song.
in that case, like Az just stands with crossed arms next to Tajak and just waits until it's time to go.
Perfect.
As we're like all finished and getting ready to go, I'm gonna go up to Tejas and I'm gonna say, I thought you were waking Tajak up.
He said he's ready to go and to wake him when it's time to go.
He's ready to go?
He said he was ready to go.
I can still hear him snoring.
I heard it. I'm telling you. He said, are we ready to go?
Yeah, I think we're ready to go.
Tajak,
Yes?
you said you're ready to go?
Ready to go.
It's time to go.
And he stands up.
Did you have a restful sleep, Tajak?
Very much so. Thank you for asking. How was yours?
Mine was not as restful, but...
That is a shame. Perhaps I will teach you how to let the machine song lull you to sleep.
I'm all set.
I don't think the machine song will help me, but I appreciate your offer. Do your legs hurt when you sleep like that?
No. Do yours?
I feel like they would.
Oh.
I'm about 100% sure I wouldn't be able to sleep like that at all.
Perhaps you shouldn't then.
I don't.
Well then, problem solved. Where are we going again? The ruins. I remember. Yes. Which way are the ruins? You see, I'm not from here.
So Freya, you remember that the ruins are actually towards the east, the eastern part of the valley, towards just north of the main embrace gate, as Aloy had described it to you.
I repeat that.
Well done. Well done.
That means nothing. Would you like to lead the way?
Sure, and I'll start heading east towards
See?
the gates.
I told you, ready to go. And he just starts following after her.
You make your way. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think Taz like kind of takes up the rear, and if he can, he probably like takes a little time to like at least like slightly try to cover a little bit of their trail. If they're not being careful, it'll probably still be obvious, like if somebody's really looking. But since he heard that there were bandits around, he's a little bit sketched out. He's a nervous fellow.
Okay.
Maybe careful.
Do you want to give me some sort of role for doing that?
I can do that.
I'm just curious because it's, I mean,
I don't know that I have any skill that makes me good at that, but I'm happy to roll something.
Well, so if I remember correctly, because the way that we talked about the way that the character statement works to include the tribe, right? Right. So you've got certain ability, or you've got certain things that you're trained in that relate to, warfare with humans, essentially. And if you're looking to obscure your tracks, from sort of human interpretation, that is an element of that, if you ask me.
That is very much the goal.
Do you think deception could tie into it? I could lend him aid.
Would that be something that so again, we're world building the Utaro here pretty much live with your character. So would that be something that the Utaro would do as a part of their existence on the plains?
I think so, because they're like a nomadic plains tribe. So I think there were probably times that they were attacked that they had to pack up and then disguise their trails. So that totally makes sense. I'm also trained in deception, was kind of more what I was getting. Right.
Well, the training deception, I mean, it could be, because essentially the way that, as I understand it, Krona has been mostly in sort of city or settlement dwellings, for the most part. So I'm just trying to figure out how that would play into a situation where you're basically dealing with essentially almost like a survivalist kind of an approach to things.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Well, no, but it's a point to you've got deception plus, you've got that other element of the Utaro as well. So I will factor that back into the way it's written on the codex. But I think between the two of you, yeah, you're more than welcome to make that, whatever that role seems appropriate to you guys. Now,
how exactly does helping work? Do I roll first? Do I wait for something?
I would, if I'm helping you, then you ease your roll by a step if we're of equal level of training.
Gotcha. So I'm trained in combating humans, fighting humans. Cool. And what is my difficulty here, Johnny?
Given that you don't have pretty much any other survival skill, I would say that it's probably difficulty 3.
Cool. And then with help goes down to standard. Intellect, I'm guessing, makes the most sense to me, at least. I'm not going to spend effort. Boom. Oh my goodness, that's a great roll.
Shit, I forgot to open roll 20. What did you roll?
You got a minor effect as well.
I got a 19, so I got a minor effect. Can I just like boost the effectiveness? It's just like we do a bet, like Krona and Teas happen to be a much better team than either might have expected, and they happen to do like a pretty good job of kind of obscuring the trail without making us hold up the group too bad.
Yeah, we actually have two different methods of doing it. So like we're focused on very different details, and then between the two of us, we've completely obscured it.
Oh, I like that. That's very cool. Yeah, I'm into it.
All right, you guys have mechanically sort of described what that's like. Narrate it for us, guys.
Okay, yeah. So, I think like Tues at the very least would be like very focused on like traditional tracking signs, like because he's been on manhunts before. So he's probably like trying to like step lightly and like maybe like if Tajak drops anything, he'll like try to make sure it's picked up. If someone steps out of place, he'll try to do what he can to obscure that. But I think he's definitely focusing on like footsteps mostly.
And I think Krona is doing almost the exact opposite. If we're traveling through some like tall grasses, he's got his like cloak kind of billowing out around him and is like dancing and whirling around in kind of a crazy way that doesn't really make any sense at first. But then you're realizing that as we're walking through it and we're kind of bending all the grass in the direction that we're headed, he's instead kind of swirling it all back so that it doesn't look displaced in that way.
Awesome.
I'm just kind of curious, as the only one that's actually trained in survival and actually, lives on this particular land, what does Feyre think about what these fools are doing?
I think they're doing too much. I think, if you didn't ruin the earth on your movement, you wouldn't have to clean up your movements.
I'm a much larger person than you are, Feyre. It's a lot harder.
Does the wind ruin the earth? It is a sacred bond of union between the wind and the earth. And I am the wind, and this is a representation of that.
You certainly don't look like the wind, and you certainly are as loud as a windstorm, I suppose.
As he jingles.
She does have a point.
When the storm speaks. Sorry, I forgot my voice. What was my the Utaru tribe? When the wind speaks, all must listen. When the storm must be heard.
Okay. And I'm just gonna go continue letting them do what they want, and I'll continue leading them.
It appears to be for your benefit that we can hear you from so far, far away, then.
To save Krona? That we can hear him?
Yeah, that's what he says to Krona.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I've heard how you guys are accomplishing this. Sam, you've got a minor effect for Tues. What is that minor effect that you're going to add to all of this?
Oh, I was going for the like we work really well together. Like surprising.
So that's the effect. It's almost like watching the two of you kind of work in a dancing sort of like emotion. Like there's some eloquence to it, whatever the hell you guys are doing that is completely separate. So okay,
I think it's maybe like an oddly like fitting juxtaposition with like Krona kind of doing this like weird like dancing like wind kind of inspired motion where like Tues is very like sort of stoic earthy type, right? Like he moves very purposefully, but not particularly like flashy. So it combined, it seems like it may not like work well together, but it ends up doing much better than you would think.
Excellent. So as the four of you are moving from the sort of the western part of the embrace, the western part of the valley, away from the ruins, you're able to take in the scene and the setting a little bit more. For Feyre, this is really mostly familiar for you, but for the rest of you, you are essentially new to this land, and so the sheer beauty of this valley, you can understand how in the past various tribes have tried to invade the embrace. Its sheer beauty and the amount of resources, natural resources that are here, that easily acquired, would definitely make any tribe jealous, any group jealous of what the Nora have. And so as you're moving towards the flowing river that kind of is at the center of the valley and just kind of flows from north to south, pretty much at the center, you see various tribesmen of the Nora just kind of moving through, doing various things along the roads and the paths, not as cautious as you would expect in pretty much any other place. And for Feyre, you know that this is because the tribe works incredibly hard to keep they cull the machines down to what is manageable, to live in harmony with. But as you cross the river and towards the sort of the eastern part, you begin to see a little bit more of the devastation of the eclipse attack. There are scorched areas of earth that have not recovered from what looked like flowing, sort of like paths of fire that are now kind of burnt out. And so the ground is just beginning to slowly kind of begin to green again a little bit. You can see various, stalks of grass just beginning to grow through, large swaths of burnt area. Trees that look like had stood for 100 years are all split and cracked and all over the place. It looks like an area of devastation. The shards of the trees and sort of the stumps that are standing, maybe 4 to 6 feet tall, but otherwise are just like shattered at the top. And you can see the sort of the debris of their limbs, are starting to rot and resettle sort of back into the ground proper itself. And as you make your climb towards the eastern half of the embrace, through this sort of area, you crest over a series of rocks. And Feyre, this is generally the area where Aloy was pointing you in the direction of. You're just maybe, an hour's journey north of the, sort of the gate of the main gate of the embrace. And you see more of sort of the scorched, area in earth. But as the four of you kind of crest over this little rise, you see an incredible sight before you. There is a large amount of like devastation in respects to the vegetation and the machines that are kind of like collected here. Various machines, some that are actually incredibly gigantic, that tower, way above you, 4 stories tall, even as they're sort of embedded in the ground and sort of just beginning to rust a little bit. You see these big machines that are there, and there are various other smaller machines. You see watchers and you see striders that are, of course, sort of collected in this area, that are beginning to rust and kind of, just being reclaimed by the earth, essentially. But then you notice other machines too, of various sizes and shapes that are also sort of, kind of scattered around and devastated here. And as you're kind of looking and assessing around, your eyes eventually come to the type of machine that you're looking for. And let me see if I can bring up a picture of that for you guys in just 1 second. But as you're kind of looking and you're kind of assessing the situation and you're seeing it, let me bring you guys over to the correct page.
My understanding too that we don't come here often, right?
Right.
No. Okay.
The Nora do not come here at all. In fact, there has to be a reason for her to be sending you here, okay. Right? And so as you do, you see the crumpled remains of a machine that looks like this. It's crumpled on the ground. Its legs are kind of up above it, and it's just in the sort of like, it's like collapsed on its 4 legs. And the tail that you see that's there, let me move it down a little bit so you guys can actually see it better. The tail that's there is kind of laid around, part of the body itself. And it's at the center of these other machines. And lastly, before you guys say anything else, there are some bodies and some, like the rotting, corpses among the machines that the Nora could not clear easily. Some wearing Nora's garb, some wearing something else that a couple of you recognize as the type of, outfits that the Eclipse would wear.
How big is that machine?
It is a good 12 feet tall when it stands at its height, but right now it's about man size. So about, your average somewhere between 5 and 6 feet, off the ground at this point. But it's just there, and it's lying, sort of onto the ground dormant. You don't see any lights on it at all activated.
When I activate, when I do the thing that for the living machine, like lets me like examine them.
When you activate the focus?
Yeah, will it work on a dead machine? Because I don't think Tues has seen one of these before, right?
So all's it says, so when you light it up, right, the world, of course, goes into that geodesic sort of, polyhedron thing, you visually. And as there's like a reticle that's like where your perspective is, that's like what you're looking at. And as you take the reticle and you look towards that machine, the scanning doesn't activate. It doesn't indicate that it's an active machine. But what does happen is as you're kind of hovering over it, eventually towards the upper right-hand side, that sort of like blue panel just kind of hangs there, kind of looking, and it says corruptor.
All right, so I can't get like the same information that I would get on the other one, but at least get a name.
Right. So as you're doing that, you're able to see that, right? You're able to see that sort of that information sort of displayed there. And as you're kind of looking around, you see some other machines that are sort of identified. Another one that you see kind of like hanging out there is a Thunderjaw. And it's this sort of gigantic sort of thing that kind of actually looks like a Tyrannosaurus Rex, if you as a reference. You see some other machines that are called scrappers that are just kind of there. There appears to be one that's called a fire bellowback. And then you see a couple others that are called glint hawks that are sort of just, that look like weird sort of avian things. And as you take your eye, as you're kind of focusing all of this stuff, as you're focusing on it and you look back towards the gigantic sort of 4-story tall machine, that's got an interesting name. It's not quite what you expect. And so as you're kind of looking at it, it says Khopesh, FAS-FSP5 Khopesh, spelled KHOPESH. It doesn't actually have a name that's normal like the other ones.
Do we know that word?
No.
Okay.
You might actually.
Might I, Johnny?
You
might, based on what your mentor has told you, you would actually know them. You would know all of that, like some more of that information.
Interesting. So there's like just dead robots, right? Dead machines here, as well as corpses, and we're looking for a device, right?
You were looking at device. You were looking for something that Aloy described as an override device,
right?
And she pointed it out to it, and she pointed out to it on her spear, essentially her staff.
Okay, but we weren't told anything more than that.
No, you were just told to head to the site with the hope of finding one from this corruptor.
And this thing is this giant scorpion thing is the corruptor.
Yes.
So I think Tues is going to use like the information that he got from the scan, and he's just going to like, probably without really a word, he's just going to like walk over and just like start taking this thing apart and looking for the piece. Like he now knows like which joints are going to be weaker. He's pretty good at this, so he just starts kind of disassembling the thing.
As you begin to make your descent into towards, it's sort of like this, like there's like an area of like devastation, in the ground. It's a little bit like submerged a little bit, but as you're making your way into that, the ground under your feet feels scorched and softer for whatever reason. It's just like it's as if the earth has been churned, so much that it doesn't feel like there's a solid pack, and so your feet just sort of sink into it just a little bit. As if the ground is beginning to be, sort of like churned, as if you were going to be, planting something.
Tues, friend, think back to the tales last night. told around the campfire of these battles with the what were they called? The Stormbird, the one that the lady was talking about last night.
The Watchers.
No, I'm sorry. There was a particular one that was mentioned last night by the person around the campfire, and that it's not important. think of the tales last night, and all of those tales revolved around being quiet and sneaking and finding the best path. You see, and Krona continues on for an exceedingly long amount of time, but is using the skill or the ability anecdote to lift the spirits of the group and help them by those who pay attention to the story are trained in a task you choose that's related to the anecdote. So sneaking, everybody is trained in for a time.
I can see I'm going to have to come up with some ways to keep you quiet, buddy.
This is all I can do. This is it.
Yeah,
That's all you can do, but yes, I get it.
Be a sneaky boy then.
I am also going to walk over to the corruptor, assuming that it is in fact dead, and I want to place my hand on whatever limb is closest to wherever I walk up to.
Okay. So Tues and Tejak are going to play with dead things. What are the rest of you doing? Oh, I'm sorry. And Krona is inspiring stealth. What is Feyre doing?
I'm going to stand by Krona, not necessarily listening to him. I'm just going to look at the devastation of the land around me. This isn't somewhere I've been, so I'm just going to take in the scenery. I'm not going to get too close to the machines. I'm hesitant of that. But I'm just kind of going to look around, observe the area, essentially.
Okay, so as you're kind of taking in the situation and you're kind of assessing the scene, you notice a little bit of movement off to your left, more towards sort of the northern side of this scene. This devastation, and this devastation goes on for a long ways. Like it curves with the mountain a little bit. The sort of the mountainside, and there are some trees that have survived and some other things. But you see a little bit of movement that sort of catches your eye, but it's off in the distance. It's far enough away that you're not really sure what you're seeing because it looks like it's shimmering or glinting.
I'm just going to keep it to myself for now, thinking it might be a machine or something, I'm not going to take it to be a huge threat right now.
Okay. All right. So back to Tues and Tejak. First, Tues, I'm going to need some sort of a roll here. You're essentially looking for an incredibly delicate part on the body of this thing. So what do you think that roll is going to be?
It sounds like probably salvaging Numenera, which I have an inability at. So that's good.
Okay. So, yeah, there, buddy. You want to? Are you coordinating with Tejak, or are we just going to let this inability just kind of continue?
That's a good question.
I mean, Tejak hasn't said anything. You just you sort of walked over there, and then he walked over there, just nodded at you, and continued doing his own thing.
Yeah, then I guess I'm just doing this.
All right.
What's the difficulty?
Since I would imagine that you did not fight one of these machines because you did not. You were actually in sort of like prison when the invasion of the eclipse happened. So you didn't have really any experience dealing with these.
But I did get the focus reading.
You did get the focus reading. So that's going to reduce the difficulty by 1. But these are incredibly difficult machines. So their level is pretty significant, but dead. I still think it would have been a sort of a difficulty 4. So that means that you're going to reduce it to a difficulty 3.
Sweet.
But with your inability, doesn't that just cancel out?
I think it'll do it automatically, probably. It already gives me the +1. But I still succeed.
You do. but it takes you a little bit of time. And so you're kind of reaching your way into, you're kind of pulling cables apart and looking at joints, and you're beginning to kind of make your way through it. And so we're going to cut back over to Tejak while you see Tejas doing what he's doing.
I don't think it's very elegant. I don't know what Tajax is going to look like, but like it's very clear that the main ability of Tejas is breaking and not salvaging.
Yeah, you see Tejak kind of walk over, and he like continuously nods. Oh yes, mm-hmm. And then he just like places a hand onto like I assume like the leg of this thing, and then he hops up on top of it and places both hands, and he sort of is squatting down, holding onto the leg of this thing. And Johnny, I'm going to use what Numenera calls sense magic. So it is an ability that I can activate. You can sense whether the Numenera or the old tech is active in situations where its presence is not obvious. You must study an object or location closely for 1 minute to get a feel for whether the touch of the ancients is at work. So basically, I am mounting this creature, and I place both my hands on it, and I'm kind of running over it as I kind of like walk up and down the legs, and I'm searching for old tech, or the tech of the ancients.
All right. Same difficulty.
Okay. Cool. I am. All right. So to be clear, I am trained in salvaging Numenera and understanding Numenera. Do both of those help?
Yes.
Perfect. And I think it's difficulty 3, right?
Yes.
And I have the focus, so it's a difficulty 0. I succeed. I will still roll just in case it's a crit. Roll. Difficulty. 1. I succeed.
Okay. So you begin to rub your hands around this thing, and as you're kind of watching Tejas clumsily kind of doing his thing, you make your way with your hands just sort of naturally sort of guided in some way, almost as if under a trance. Is there any mumbling or sort of like a rite or ritual that you have to speak as you're kind of enacting all of this?
No, I think anyone who's paying attention sees like the blue veins just sort of like light up and like pulse with energy as he is harnessing the machine song and the blue light to like basically the way I kind of see the Banuk is like they kind of could do the focus thing without the focus to a very minor extent because of their like that's kind of like what their religion was, and the focus just like, oh, this was real, right? So I think like you just see like the lights begin to pulse, and you might see like a white like bead of light sort of go through the blue veins of the blue tubing that he's put into his body. But yeah, there's no sort of noise.
Okay, so as you're doing this, you're kind of feeling your way through. You find your hands being guided towards sort of like the main body of this thing. We're going to call it the chassis. And as Tejas is kind of wrapping his hands around cables and kind of reaching in and just trying to, move and, pry his hand up into this thing, your hands naturally just kind of come in on the other side and pop, a panel just sort of naturally off the body of this thing, right there. You feel like the grooves where you would just like sort of dislodge the panel and it just pops off. Mm-hmm. And as you hear this sort of grunting motion as Tejas is just like, I almost got it. You reach in on the other side and grab another one of these override things. And then as you're kind of like, your hand is reaching there, the panel's out of the way, the cables are, you get a moment of inspiration and you run your other hand just along this other cable that's kind of attached to it. And you feel something and you just press it and it pops, and this entire thing just sort of pops out on the other side with you. And as Tejas is just kind of like eventually just kind of ripping the cable out and kind of doing his thing, and he kind of, steps back and he kind of holds it up, and you can see that there's dangling wires everywhere and it looks a little scuffed and damaged. Tejak just kind of goes and points to the one that he grabbed too.
You don't have to punch it. It's already dead. Are your hands okay?
Yes.
Have you ever salvaged one of the machine kind?
I'm good at breaking them.
So no. You see, the Banuk people, we salvage them and we use them. All parts of the machine are good parts of the machine.
Other people know how to do that. I'm mostly good at breaking them.
Oh. Well, I don't mean to seem rude, Tejas, but this one is already broken.
Point taken.
So as the two of you are having this exchange, as the two of you are having this exchange, Farah, you keep noticing the little shiny glint sort of off to the left, far up this sort of scar. But as you're kind of like glancing over again, you see the head of a watcher sort of cresting up over the rise where that glint is sort of coming from. And it's standing up and it just like rises itself and it looks like it's scanning the area. It's still far enough away that you're not too terribly concerned at this point. But it's doing its thing and it begins to kind of move down the crest of this little hill that's there. We're just on, from where the glint is and beginning to move as it navigates through the machines, the machine rubble that's there.
Krona, do you see the Watcher coming?
Krona looks a little insulted because you probably interrupted him in the middle of some rambling conversation about something.
I just love that, like, Krona can power up everyone if anyone listens to him, and just no one chooses to listen to him.
Okay, so I'm going to use a thing because I've got confident outlook because I am a confident Arcus. So when I set my mind to it, I can be trained in one task for 10 minutes as long as it's not an attack or a defense. So I say, Farah, you are wiser than any could imagine. Your eyes are sharp as the wind, but I am the wind, and like squints, and I've convinced myself that I'm perceptive, and so I would get an advantage on it. And yeah, I'm also trying to perceive something as well.
All right. So what are you trying to perceive, and what's the roll that you're going to give me?
I'm looking at wherever the direction that she's looking. How do I just make I'm not actually trained. I guess I could just temporarily add this.
If you click like intellect on the top of where it says your pools.
Oh, okay, cool.
Word, intellect, speed, and might or rolls.
Okay. What difficulty? You also don't have to tell us the difficulty, Johnny. We could just put in 0, which is unknown.
I honestly like giving you guys the difficulties at this point. I'm not going to. It's more sort of a mechanical element of just kind of understanding the way that we're doing the system right now. But eventually, there's going to be a point where you guys are definitely not going to get the difficulty for certain things.
Okay.
At this point, given that Farah was already paying attention to it, and kind of keeping an eye out that direction, it's going to be a difficulty 2.
Okay. I'm not going to expend effort.
Wow.
Well, it's a good thing I rolled a 3 and not a 1.
So,
wait, is that correct?
That doesn't seem right. Because that
should be a success, right? You said it was a difficulty 2.
The difficulty 2.
And I eased it. I think I didn't do the easing thing properly.
Right. So you're going to succeed. It was likely for you to succeed unless you got a 1.
Well, right. Yeah. If it was difficulty 1, because it moved down 1 step from my training, then a 3 would succeed.
Right. Okay. So you notice the machine as moving is beginning to navigate its way through. As you and Farah are kind of paying attention to it, you hear the two of Tejas and Tejak sort of having an exchange. It's kind of a gruff exchange, and you see that the path and the motion of this watcher is going to keep coming towards the corruptor.
I'm going to walk away from Krona and his talking and up to Tajak and Tues. Sorry, I keep screwing up the names. And warn them that someone or the Watcher is coming.
Thanks for the heads up. I'm gonna tuck the thing away and crack my knuckles. Get ready to potentially break a robot.
Does the shimmering that I see, is that different than the Watcher I see?
Yes.
Oh, there's also a shimmering out quite a ways, and I'm not 100% sure if it's a monster.
Well, that's a good thing you point that out to me, because I just realized that I have an ability called Survivor's Intuition.
Do you?
I know a random piece of information pertinent to the current situation when I wish. It is always an objective fact and must be something you could have logically read or seen in the past. You can do this one time, although the ability renews each time you make a 10-hour recovery roll.
Very cool.
So I would like to have seen this shimmering on the horizon somewhere in my travels and recognize it.
Oh, you would definitely have recognized it, given that you were from the Karja territory. So as you're kind of sort of like looking in the direction, and you can still see the Watcher beginning to navigate its way through the various sort of rubble heaps of machines that are dead here. You look where Feyre points, and you see this sort of shimmering sort of glint as it's happening. And what you realize is those are sparks, and they're sparks kind of flying, as if there is something, essentially metal, grinding against metal. And you recognize and realize quickly that this is actually a little bit more of a problem for you, because you recognize that as a sign of a scrapper who is trying to recover machines. And so let me show you a picture of a scrapper real quick. And we go right here.
It might be wise for us to leave at this point, since we have what we want.
Don't we need 2 more? Or
you have 2 of them.
We need at least 4, right?
You do? Well, that's up to you.
Taz is gonna look to Feyre and say, the Watcher's not all. See that glimmering?
Mm-hmm.
It's not friendly. Scrapper.
I don't think I know what a scrapper is.
Yeah, Johnny, do we know what a scrapper is?
So for the Nora, unless you had ventured far from sort of like the tribal settlements, no, you wouldn't have. For anyone who has spent any time sort of, kind of, any place in the land, you would notice that scrappers are machines that basically find other downed machines like Watchers or Striders or various other types of machines. And they come in and they appear to be consuming them. And what they do is, as you can see this thing here, it leans its head in and begins to kind of consume the machine, whatever's going on with the machine. It breaks it down into smaller parts, and then breaks it down into smaller parts, and then breaks it down into smaller parts. But it's not, the tribal knowledge or even colloquial knowledge isn't really indicate what's actually going on with that.
Okay.
Well, whatever Tajak was doing to find these things, better hurry up and find 2 more like Aloy told us to. I can try to hold that thing off, but if we let it get here, there's going to be nothing but scrap left.
I can.
It's at that. Sorry, go ahead.
I can find more. That's it. That's what he says.
Okay, so it's at that as Feyre and Tajak and Tues are having this sort of exchange, that Krona, standing off to the side, that's when something else catches your eye, sort of off to your right and a little bit to the south, as you see that there is another Watcher beginning to make the rise, coming into this sort of scar area, and followed behind it is a scrapper.
Krona, my friends.
Krona, with all that throat clearing, you're gonna make that scrapper come over here and hear us.
Well, as I said earlier, I see with the eyes of the storm, and I point in the direction of the other ones approaching.
I have a feeling they're coming. With your permission, Farah, it is your land. May I hunt?
I think that's our only choice at this point.
We can still run.
Are we faster than them?
Look, we have a mission to do. We need to give Tejak time to find at least 2 more of these things.
Yes, at least 2 more.
You can't have 2. I mean, I guess you could have 2.
Well, we already have 2.
I hate to be rude, but we're really running out of time. We can kill it about the number of things we're going to find.
Yes, go.
I think, yeah, Tass is going to just start running off towards probably like the one that is already chomping on the Watcher, because that one's probably going to be headed our direction sooner. And if he can, he's going to try to find like a tree or an outcropping to do his like normal thing where he like climbs up so that he can jump down on top of it.
Okay, so you're able to kind of angle around where the path of where the Watcher is going, as explained by Farah and Krona, and you're able to find a perch that you can climb up on. That actually, ironically, happens to be on the big 4-story tall thing. Machine, and you're able to kind of get up at a high enough level to where you're able to just kind of look down, and you can see that it's kind of coming in your path. But as you're doing that, you get an opportunity to kind of assess the rest of the situation, and you look over, and at the 2 machines that Krona pointed out that were coming from the south, there's 3 more behind it. There are 2 more scrappers and 1 more Watcher, and you look and you go, well, geez. And you look back over towards the north, and there are 2 other scrappers up there with another Watcher who are currently working on a machine.
Yeah, so Terrace like gives a whistle down towards Farah and like tries to like point out the 2 locations. Yeah, I mean, I think if he didn't like already do it on the climb up, he's gonna like I don't know. Do I need to like press a button? I just like kind of like think to like activate and like track the robot, right?
I'm sorry, say that again.
To like activate the focus and track the robot, I just like think, right? I don't have to like touch anything, right?
No, you basically just have to think.
Sweet. So yeah, he's gonna like try to track it while he's doing it, and he's gonna try to alert the others about the other 2. But he's near this guy, so he's gonna deal with the one in front of him first. Got it. Take care of what's on your plate, then you can move on to the next one.
All right. So at this particular point, we're going to call this a surprise round again. And then after that, we're going to go right into initiative. Okay. And Krona, you actually might get a chance to actually have your turn this time around. Can you imagine that?
You guys are prepared to be underwhelmed.
He's going to have to do something this time.
All right. So you see the Watcher kind of coming in. Please describe what you're going to do and then make your roll.
So I just get a free attack, just to be clear.
Yes, this is a surprise attack.
Sweet. Yeah. So Taz is like using the focus to like get an even more like exact look than he like normally would. But he's like following his normal pattern. He like kind of gets ready, and when he can, he's gonna like spring down, and he's gonna try to get like near the head region, and he's gonna like start wrangling with like the 2 like little ear horn things, and sort of like digging in where the shoulders meet the neck, and we'll see if he's successful here. Okay, unarmed strike. Difficulty. Don't you gotta tell me?
All right. The difficulty is going to be well, the machine's level is the 3, so difficulty 3, unless you've got something that's going to reduce that.
Focus, right? That takes it down 1.
The focus will take it down 1, yes.
Sweet. And then I'm rolling unarmed strike, which unfortunately won't be trained until next level, but that's okay. Because I still do a lot of damage if I manage to hit. I'm going to save the effort this time around. And it's okay because I succeed doing 7 damage.
Okay, so as you kind of land and like come on top of this thing and just like you just kind of smash it a little bit, its legs buckle out from under it and it just slams into the ground. But you grab in and you begin to kind of grab and wrench at this thing. Describe to me what it's like when you actually kill this thing.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so if he kills it, I think like what happens is he like grabs and like pulls on some like bits of wiring that connect to some like servos or joints or something. And then he's like yanking back on it, almost like sort of a rider yanking back on reins, right? And it drives those kind of like grindy robot chewers that it has straight into the ground, where they kind of just grind up against and break themselves.
But you're not. Wait a minute. Are you going after the Watcher, or are you going after the
I was
Scrapper?
going after the big guy.
Okay, so you're going after the Scrapper. I'm sorry. I mistakenly narrated that incorrectly. I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
So let's go ahead and just gonna you still are gonna succeed at this with you rolled a 12 or 7 or no
6.
Sorry.
So not that great.
Well, I'm gonna do this as a GM intrusion. Okay. And say that you jumped a little too soon and you took out the Watcher that was walking in front of it.
Cool, that makes sense.
All right, so you're going to take an XP. You jump a little, you anticipate something, but something holds it up at the last second, and you jump down, or you kind of jump down, and you land on the Watcher instead, and kind of smash.
You muted yourself. Also, Sam, you get to give someone else an XP.
Right. You get to give someone else XP. Sorry, I didn't know why that actually muted me. It didn't mean to. Okay, anyways, so you kind of smash down on it, right? And so the Scrapper behind this Watcher kind of turns its head back, and its eyes go from blue to red as it has you sort of like in its sights, right? But I'm going to give another GM intrusion, and this time I'm going to do it to Feyre and say, as you're kind of like paying attention and looking at the situation and kind of watching and preparing for what's happening, another sort of Watcher just kind of makes its way around the rubble, kind of looking at both you and Tejak. So I'm going to give you 1 XP, and then you've got 1 to be able to hand to somebody else.
So I gave mine to Feyre, and I'm kind of imagining that as being like part of like Tess acknowledging that it's Nora land and asking for her permission to go on this hunt.
Dope.
So does that give me 2?
So yeah, you have 2 now, and you have 1 to give away.
You have 1 to give away as this Watcher it's like coming up behind you, just right next to you.
Now, out of curiosity, the sheet started me with 1. Should it have started me with 0, or am I supposed to start with 1? Okay, sure.
I think you would have started with 0.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'm going to give 1 to Tejak. Sorry, Krona, but you talk too much.
Direct attack.
You just wait till that talking saves your life.
Krona, you gonna take some intellect damage on that burn.
Damn. And then am I taking an action now? Sorry, I'm not.
No, what's happening now is that the intrusion is that there's another Watcher sort of coming around and cornering and just is right next to you as you didn't realize that you were in a situation where there was another sort of like blind spot for it to happen. And now is where we're going to actually roll initiative.
Ooh, no.
So I have a question for the 2 of you who are at the table, who have played Numenera before.
Yeah.
Comes about difficulty with initiative.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you have mixed level creatures?
I usually average out the 2 of them and say that's the thing. That's what I do personally.
Yeah, you could also just take one or the other. You could take the higher or the lower and just say that, yeah.
Okay. So the higher okay. All right. So the scrappers are going to be level 4, but I'm going to have you guys roll with watchers level 3 difficulty for your initiative. So go ahead and just do that.
Okay. I succeed. Baby.
Nice.
If it's anything like the other aspects of this game, it seems like it's very much like meant to be kind of what's narratively appropriate, right? So if like the scrappers are like distracted by the watchers, it makes sense that they're like using their initiative, or if like the watchers are like affected by the scrappers somehow.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Wow. Kai, Sam, great rolls. Great rolls.
I'll be over here barely passing initiative.
All right. All right, so let's start with Feyre. So Feyre, this thing has just kind of made its way around the corner and all of a sudden spots you, and it hasn't even had time to really kind of react and assess the situation yet, but it kind of moves in. So it just steps up next to you.
I will say, Sam and Kai, you do have a major effect to use because you nat 20'd.
I thought major effects did not apply to initiative.
I think major effects apply to everything. The only thing that doesn't apply is damages. So, like, you could do a major effect and be like, you get to attack twice in a round.
Yeah, actually, go ahead and give us a major effect for you, Feyre, and then we'll have Tues do that same.
I have like creature control, where I can control a creature up to level 2. Can my major effect be I can control level 3?
That's dope.
Or no.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
That's fucking dope.
That would be sick.
So, do you remember what your artifact was there, Feyre?
Oh, I forgot that I already had it and they didn't.
Right. So remember that artifact? Use that artifact. That's the major effect, is that you can use it.
Okay. I already have an override. So I'm going to override the
Watcher.
The Watcher beside me.
Okay.
And can I use it to attack the
So yeah, you're going to be able to. So narratively, you're going to be able to control it this time around. There are rules that I haven't finished specifically around this, and they're based on some of the stuff that's actually in Predation about controlling dinosaurs. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, narratively, I want you to just describe it for me, and then we'll just handle what happens by having you actually roll as if it's your pet.
I want to turn towards it, and I want it to notice me, and I just want to reach out. Is it within reaching distance? Since I'm
absolutely.
And I want to touch it, and I want its eyes to turn like a green color instead.
Okay.
And then I want to. I'm just gonna attack. That's all I'm gonna do.
Okay, so I'm going to narrate this for you. So the first time, as it was to describe what the override would look like, from a game perspective. But so as you kind of reach out, you take the override and you touch it to the body of the Watcher, and it goes rigid for a second, and the eye color begins to kind of flicker because it's got this sort of blue eye thing going on, coming out of this sort of the front where its stalk of its head is, and so that glints and sort of shimmers, and if anybody has their focus activated, you can see that the information is beginning to kind of flow through it. And as Feyre has chosen to use the color green, you see that the blue sort of like shimmering has changed to sort of a green, and it just kind of dances across the body for just a minute or just a couple of seconds as she overrides this. And when it's done, the light kind of flickers back and it becomes a solid green, kind of looks at you, and then begins to kind of assess the situation and look around. And now you've got this, you've taken your action, and you basically have overridden this thing. So tell me what you got to do next.
I want it to attack the scrapper.
Okay.
And I'm going attack the tail. The tail, right? It has a tail.
What, the scrapper?
Yeah. No.
Or no. Well, it's the one that's on the game table right now. It sort of looks like a sort of a weird sort of jaguar looking thing, right? It's not the corruptor that's got the tail.
Oh, so I'm just gonna tell it to go for the face.
All right. So
Solid direction.
Yeah.
it looks at you, kind of shakes itself, and immediately begins to run around and head towards where Tues is, sort of facing down the scrapper that's kind of looking at him. And as it does, it rears up, and it's about probably 20 feet away at this point, and it rears up, and you see that the light on the front, just sort of the eye stalk sort of thing, begins to glow red. And as it does, it then fires off an energy bolt. And I need you to make me a roll at difficulty 2, please.
I think this is like one of those moments from that happens all the time in like action movies where it's like seems like like Tues like looks and he's like, oh shit, thinks this thing's coming like right at him, and then like the bolt like zaps over his head instead of just blowing him up.
So I'm going to need you to make that roll. Did you make that roll? You did. Okay, excellent. So it fires off, and the bolt sort of just shoots out and hits the scrapper sort of on the backside of the head, right? It just kind of hits it and sort of washes over it. And so for Tues, what he sees is the bolt just kind of passes over him and kind of hits this thing in the back. And you can see that there's a number of like singed parts, becoming exposed around the sort of the head of the scrapper as its gears are starting to wind up, as it's heading toward, kind of looking and heading towards you. But it kind of turns, sees the Watcher behind, leaps and jumps over and heads for the attack to attack the thing. But as it's beginning that leap, it becomes your turn.
Nice. Let's see how I do. I get a major effect too, don't I?
You do.
You do.
I'm gonna take the I get to attack twice option that somebody suggested.
Okay.
Because I think that'll fit well. But so yeah, like first I think Tues like gives a surprised but grateful look towards Feyre when he doesn't get evaporated by this Watcher. And then I'm going to roll first, and then depending on how well, I'll describe something cool. Okay. So this is a 4 to start with, and then down to 3 with my focus.
That's correct.
Cool. I'm going to spend some effort this time. I have a pool of 17. I will spend, it's 2 I need to spend to go down 1, right?
For the first level, yes, that's correct.
Okay, I will spend 2 effort. So is there any point to ever spend 1 effort? Oh, if your edge is higher.
Yes.
So
right. So your initial effort would be 3 minus whatever your edge is.
Right.
And then
so if my edge was 2, I would only need to spend 1. Okay, that makes sense.
Right. But so if you're at your second level, if you were to reduce it to another level of effort after the first, if the first level is 3 to reduce, then the second level is 2. So if your edge is 2, you can automatically reduce at that additional level. If my understanding is correct.
Close. It's cumulative. So if you're reducing it by 2 effort, it's not 3 then 2, it's 5. So if you have an edge of 2, right, you'd reduce the 5 by 2. So it's still
right. I'm sorry.
That's the most complicated rule in the entire system, and everyone messes it up all the time.
Well, damn them for making complicated rules.
Yes, it's the only one.
Thank goodness that I used that effort because. Oh wait, for some reason it subtracted the difficulty by 2 instead of by 1.
Either way, you rolled a 7, which would have. Oh no, you didn't. You rolled a 5. So yeah, you would have missed.
You would have missed, yeah.
I'm trying to figure out why the sheet did that. I guess maybe it just is asking how much you're reducing it by. Anyway.
Yeah, so in the effort column, you're reducing by 1 effort. You're spending 1 effort. So that's why.
Got it. Okay, cool. Good to know.
All right. So with this first one, describe this first miss as this thing is beginning to leap over you.
So I think this thing just like jumps, and Tues tries to like grab and like use the leverage to like grab on and pull himself up, but he misses And so then he has to like try to like reach and grab the tail after the fact. And we'll see if he is successful here.
So it doesn't have a tail, but you can grab one of its legs.
Oh yeah, sure. I thought that little protruding thing in the picture back here was a tail.
So that's not a tail. It's like there's a reason behind that component. I believe it is essentially, I think, what's called the radar package. These things actually have some interesting abilities. So
okay. Anyway, yeah. So he's grabbing onto whatever he can. Let's try to not fail this time. Unarmed strike, difficulty 3. No effort this time. Oh yeah, that's pretty good.
All right, you get a minor effect plus the damage. So talk to me about that.
So
or you could just add
is 7 damage enough to kill it? Because if not, I'll do the extra 3 damage.
So these things are difficulty 4. They're level 4. So between the damage that the Watcher had already done and whatever damage you're going to do by default, I would suggest going with the minor effect.
Okay. Cool. So I think what I would like to do then is, so like, I think Taz like grabs and like breaks piece of its leg off, and it kind of like goes, you see it like go haywire a little bit as it like kind of struggles to right itself. And can I like send it off in the direction towards like the next nearest group to like buy us some time? Probably not to like do any damage or anything, but just so that it's like kind of they have to work around it or are distracted by it potentially.
So the next group that's coming up, it would be coming from the south, which is the 2 more scrappers plus the other Watcher.
Yeah, so basically the idea would be with the minor effect, just essentially this thing gets in their way and slows them up a little bit, buys us some time.
All right, so you send it flailing that way, right? And so it goes flying and basically lands right in front of the next scrapper, sort of blocking its way as it's kind of like alerted and it's kind of looking around. And it begins to kind of, assess the situation, giving you guys a moment to kind of, take in and assess what's going on, which leads us next to Krona, giving him an opportunity to actually get his turn this game.
Yes, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just kidding.
I pass my turn.
I pass. So I also rolled an 18 on my initiative, so I would have a minor effect, which I'm going to use the minor effect from my focus.
I think they changed that. Only 19 gets a minor effect.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like a cool success, a very cool success, and then minor effect. I think it's like plus 1 damage for a 17, plus 2 damage for an 18, and then it's like plus 2 damage or a minor effect for 19.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that is technically correct, but for just this one time, because you've been thinking about that, I'm just going to give it to you anyways. Just because you deserve
you need it so bad.
Guess what? We forgot you to give you a turn last time, so go for it, buddy.
Oh no, it wasn't forgotten. You guys you defeated all the monsters, and then it was my turn. So
sure,
but you might have had a quippy comeback as your line. It's okay.
That's true. Be like, yes. So I'm taking the minor effect from my focus, which is the next time you attempt to influence, persuade, or deceive a foe, the task is eased. And I'm going to deceive one of these scrappers using the distraction action. So I'm trained in deception, and then this is easing it by 1. And so basically the distraction action is, if it succeeds against them, then their attacks are hindered for a round. And my fluff is that I'm like running up and standing on top of this rock, and like holding my hands to my mouth and making some kind of sound that is maybe convincingly a predator of the scrappers. Or something that they perhaps fear, something in the Utaru tribe that is used to scare away machines on occasion. Do you buy that? Does that sound cool?
So no, I don't buy that, but I do have an alternative. Okay. You are able to make the noise. You are able to make some sort of noise to attract the attention. So one scrapper is occupied with what Tues was able to do with his additional effect, or with his second throw. There's another scrapper and there's a watcher. Which one are you going to distract?
The other scrapper.
Okay, and because you're invoking ability, there's no roll, right?
No, I'm gonna have to roll.
Okay,
sorry, I was just doing that.
I just wanted to make sure. I wanted to confirm. I wasn't sure what the wording on the particular ability was. So go for it.
Yeah, I'll have to roll again. So what's its difficulty again?
Its difficulty is 4.
Okay, and I'm gonna apply effort, and I'm getting an asset from the minor effect, and all right.
Well, that looks like a success to me.
Yeah, it does.
So you run up and get, you raise yourself up in such a way, and you make the call of essentially what sounds like bandits.
Mm.
And the machine, sensing that there are humans in the area by this noise, kind of perks up and begins to sort of bound off as the other scrapper is doing what it's doing. But I'm going to give you an XP as I initiate another GM intrusion, as the watcher behind it kind of looks up, starts to assess the situation as it's sort of scanning, looks over, sees you, and begins to make a really annoying sort of calling sound.
Oh no.
And as you look, you see that there's a response that comes. As you're kind of assessing the situation, there's a response that comes, and that call is coming from the northern pack of scrappers and watchers that only Tues is aware of. You hear a call coming back, and there's just a noise sort of happening in that direction.
Well, I alerted them.
You did, you didn't alert. You only alerted the ones that were around you. This one was actually sort of calling and making additional noise.
No, I mean, I alerted the party about that.
Right. Okay, right, yeah. So Krona, you get the 1 XP, and then you can hand an XP off to somebody else.
Okay, I'll discuss that in the chat. But meanwhile, I just want everyone to remember that I'm standing on a rock, shouting and screaming and ringing bells to make it sound like bandits are approaching.
All right. So it's now Teshek's turn.
I am glad he served a purpose. What is the next largest creature around besides the Corruptor?
The next largest creature around is the Watcher to the south that just alerted everything.
No. The next largest dead creature.
Well, the next largest dead creature near you is next to the Corruptor would probably be this sort of long, sort of gigantic, cat-like monstrosity thing that you would know as a what do they call her? They're shit. Let me look it up real quick. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
It is a sawtooth.
Okay. Do I believe that has a thing in it that I can't remember the name of?
Oh no.
No. Okay. So what do I know has those things? Just the
only
Corruptor?
the Corruptors. Just the Corruptors.
Does the Corruptor have multiple? I mean, obviously we found 2 at least.
They do have 2. You were able to grab 1.
Oh, okay. And then Tues has the other one.
Yes.
And that was the only Corruptor around here.
That's the only Corruptor that you can see in sight.
Okay. Is there a high ground I can get to see if there are more of them?
You could definitely jump up and climb on top of the big sort of 4-story thing.
On top of the Krona.
I'm just going to start calling it what it is, guys. It's called the Deathbringer.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm gonna climb that Deathbringer. And I like this dichotomous scene where in the scene of chaos you have Krona who's swinging his cape like a some kind of dancer. You have everyone else is killing things, and then you just have Tejak just walking with his big giant hat, humming.
You're climbing up the Deathbringer.
As he's climbing up the Deathbringer, humming.
All right, because I didn't make Tues make any type of roll, you're going to be able to climb up and get up on top of this thing. What are you doing once you get up there?
He's looking around for another Corruptor.
Okay, I need you to give me some sort of roll based.
How does perception sound?
That sounds great.
What difficulty level?
There's a lot of machines in this area, and there's a lot of distraction going on, so I'm going to say it's a difficulty 3.
Difficulty 3? Got it. Good thing I'm trained in failure. I've traded failure. I'm going to spend my XP.
Okay.
And re-roll that. Difficulty
Do it.
3. Come on, me. Nat 20.
Jesus Christ. What would you like to do with your major effect as you discover that there is another corruptor where the pack of scrappers and watchers was actually working towards sort of the north?
How far away is it? And how big is whatever the thing I'm standing on is?
The Deathbringer is 4 stories tall, and it's about maybe 100 feet wide, like or lengthwise.
Yes.
And this other corruptor is about probably 500 feet to the north.
Perfect. So Tajak looks around at the chaos around him, and then he takes a step just down enough on this monstrosity so that no one can see him anymore. And he takes his hat off and he flips it upside down and he begins to fold all of the different cables and ribbons into it. And as my major effect, I'm going to sit in that and I'm going to sled down this giant metal monstrosity towards towards the next corruptor. As I National Lampoon Christmas Vacation towards this thing, and the whole time you just.
I didn't think that you could actually top surfing a hammer. You just did. That was really good.
Goddamn right again.
So as you kind of sail and make your way that direction, you get way past where the other watcher was. But as you get sort of towards the bottom of this thing, just over the rise, you see that there are 2 watchers kind of eagerly sort of searching, and you see that the grinding, the sort of grinding flash, the glinting has stopped, and you hear the pawing of something as it makes its way up towards the rise that's just beyond where the corruptor is.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think that consumes all of my actions I can possibly make in one ridiculous turn.
It sure does, because now we have a bunch of machines that are going to go. So we're going to start with the one to the south that Krona still has to deal with because there's the Watcher, right? So the Watcher kind of makes its call, and then it looks right at Krona, and you see the red eye just sort of begin to kind of heat up, and this bolt of energy just comes flying at you. I'm going to need you to make some sort of defensive roll.
Krona is screaming in a high-pitched tone.
Would you like to demonstrate that for us?
That's the sound bandits make.
That's
too.
okay. I'll mute my mic and then do it. How about that?
No, it's okay. You're all good. But is it the sound that bandits make?
No, not nearly as cool.
Okay.
What difficulty was it?
It is a difficulty 3.
I am going to apply effort.
That seems like a wise choice.
Yes.
Nice. All right. So describe to me how Krona avoids this bolt of energy that comes flying.
By diving head first into the grass and rolling around.
Okay.
And there's nothing graceful about it at all.
And so you make this dive and you kind of roll out of the way as the bolt of energy kind of flies past, tinkling with all of your little bells as you kind of make your noise as you kind of do the roll. And now we're going to deal with the various watchers and scrappers up to the north in front of Tajak. So that bolt goes past. We cut to the 2 watchers on the rise, and they immediately kind of tilt their heads down and bolt in the direction. And now they're well beyond long range at this point, but they're trying to close in to where Feyre and Teos are at this particular point, coming in the direction of. And the scrappers also sort of, kind of crest this little rise between where you are and the corruptor is, and one of them just kind of jumps immediately and just begins to run as well, but the other one is sort of assessing the situation and kind of looking around. I'm going to need you to give me some sort of a roll to avoid detection by this thing.
Who is this?
This is you, Tajak.
Oh, cool. I mean, I'm now trained in stealth, and I'm also trained in sensing danger. Did either one of those help?
Sure, both of them will help, but this is a difficult score regardless.
Perfect. So I'm gonna say this is probably like speed.
So if multiple things help you, does it go down 2? Or
Yeah,
is
so
it-
you can reduce the difficulty
Yeah.
of something by no more than 2 from skills, whether that is 2 separate skills or 1 skill is specialized. You can reduce it by 1 asset, and you can reduce it by how many effort you have to spend.
Does that technically count as a skill? The ability that Krona gave to Tejak?
Yeah.
Yeah, he trained us in a skill.
If
Okay,
you're
all right.
trained in something, that means it's a skill, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just like trying to. I just. I can talk about it after. Never mind. It's fine.
Johnny, does the focus count as an asset for this task? I'm okay with it not. I'm just curious.
So there's a limits to what the focus can actually do for you.
Yep.
There's also you can't actively you can't be action oriented. You can't take some significant action and have the focus activated at the same time. It's so disorienting that it requires you to move at normal speeds and even be very cautious.
Okay.
Otherwise,
Yeah,
you're hurt yourself.
okay.
So in this particular case, it doesn't really make sense.
I succeed.
God damn it. So this thing is like assessing and kind of like looking at the situation and beginning to, kind of look around. And as it looks towards you, how does Tejak, avoid detection here?
In the most nonchalant and comical way possible. Like, so he sleds down, right, and he lands where he comes to a skidding halt, and he just sort of picks the hat up, and all the coils fall out, and he places it back on, and just every time the Watcher's head turns, you just see like a wisp of Tejak behind a rock. And then the head turns again, and he walks. And as it turns back, he's behind another rock. And it just so happens that it looks nonchalant because I think it is, right. It's just Tejak is walking, and he just happens to be behind a rock every time the Watcher looks at him.
Okay, it's a scrapper, but
Oh, scrapper. Either way, and he's still like, as he just looks back and he's behind a new rock the whole time.
All right. So finally, as it's kind of assessing the situation, it begins to slowly move, and you just kind of make your way past this thing. As it comes down the rise, you come behind the machine, and you find yourself walking up on a rise towards the corruptor. And that's the end of that round. And we're going to go right back to the top to where we've got Feyre. So Feyre, your Watcher is now just sort of like beginning to kind of look around and sort of assess the situation. You just watched Krona just dive off as a bolt of energy just kind of, took off in the direction towards him, and he died off, into the grass. And you know that Teus has been able to successfully dispatch the one scrapper that was right in front of him.
As an action, can I use one of my XP for like a player intrusion?
You sure can. What would you like to do with that player intrusion?
And I don't know if this is actually a player intrusion or if I'm just making stuff up, but I want 2 of the running Watchers to like maybe lose track of where they're at and like slam into each other to try to take 2 of them out.
It's not going to take them out, but it's definitely going to cause them some difficulty.
Cool.
So it's interesting because as you're kind of like assessing the situation, there's a noise or something sort of, scraps, like begin to kind of, fall off of one of the machines, and they're both sort of running down like, different sides of this, so this one big sort of machine that's sort of like, they're, rusting. And so this element of like, rubble or whatever kind of, begins to roll off. And the one that was running closest to it kind of looks at it and kind of turns its head a little bit and starts to slow a little bit as the second one kind of comes around and, just kind of comes around the corner on this machine, to assess the situation, and sort of bumps into the first one, and they both go rolling and tumbling sort of off, and they lie flat and prone, and they're going to be prone for this particular round. It's going to take them this round to get back up.
Okay.
But you can see that the scrapper is kind of running, kind of bounding back towards them. I'm also going to say that they both took 1 point of damage.
Cool.
All right. So that was your intrusion. So guys, just confirm that's a separate than an action. She can do that and then still take her action. Is that correct?
That's usually correct, depending on what the intrusion is. Yeah.
Okay, so that intrusion just totally works. Go ahead and you still have an action there.
I'm going to use my action for the watcher that I am currently controlling.
Okay.
Does it go for more than one round?
Yes. Once the machine is overridden, it's going to last for a little bit of time.
Okay. I want it to race out and try to meet some of the scrappers.
The scrappers coming from the north or the south?
Whichever ones are closer to me.
Well, the one from the north is barreling towards you, but it's not in your general direction, but it's nowhere near as close as the one to the south. But Tues has distracted the one from the south, and it's kind of assessing the situation and about to make its way towards you. So you can definitely have the watcher kind of turn tail and basically head towards the one to the south.
Well, if Tues is down there, I'm going to go north. Going north.
Okay. So your watcher, kind of looks around and kind of assesses, sees what's going on, and immediately takes off and tries to close the distance. So at this point, they're not going to, the distance is still long range. This watcher's not going to be able to move that distance in this amount of time and be able to take an action this round. So the next round, it will take its own action because you set it off to attack. And we're going to call your action your ability to control it. And the next round, you'll have a separate action, which will be yours. And this thing will do its own thing.
Sweet. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So your watcher goes bolting off. And Tues, you just see this thing as it just kind of bolts past you. And its green eye light just kind of looks at you for a second as it's passing, but it just keeps going. What are you doing, buddy?
So the ones to the south are more numerous and they are starting to come this direction, right?
Well, technically there's only one scrapper to the south. There was this other one that was deceived about this bandit thing. So there's one to the south and then there's a watcher to the south as well.
And then there's a scrapper and a watcher to the north.
There is a scrapper and two watchers to the north. There is a scrapper. There are two scrappers and two watchers in various states to the north.
All right. If I can get there, Tues will head north and try to go after one of the scrappers.
Okay, so the watcher, you as you're kind of watching the situation, you see the watcher is bolting towards that scrapper. You get some sort of impression that scrapper is actually going to be addressed by the watcher. So you can actually run off and close that distance, and then that will be your turn this round, or you can do something else.
Okay, so I'll take my entire turn to close the distance there.
Yeah, because it's basically at about 100 feet right now.
Okay, if I'm is there any way between my climbing skill and everything else that I can hitch a ride on this watcher and cut down this time a little bit?
What kind of a skill or what kind of a role do you think that actually is?
Climbing?
You're trying to mount a moving target, buddy.
Acrobatics, is that a skill? I mean, I don't know.
Sure. You can. I mean, if that's what you want to do it, or if you could call it a might roll or a speed roll, depending upon.
Yeah, I can just take a might roll. I don't really know how that works, but that seems fair. Okay,
so typically with this particular situation, I think just doing the level of the machine makes sense, as the difficulty. However, this thing is heads down bolting in that direction. I think that increases the difficulty at least 1. So this is going to be difficulty 4 to start.
Okay, that does seem fair. Does my climbing skill at least help me?
How does climbing apply when you see a machine that's actually probably shorter than you bolting by?
It's shorter than me? I thought it was a big guy like the other ones.
No. Well, so the watcher is when it stands, from feet to its full height, its head is probably a good 5 to 6 feet, depending upon the machine. But when it's like crouched, in this position, it's basically, think of it like a velociraptor running very, very fast. Its body is more like long and angled and not like standing up straight.
I get you. Then no, I don't have anything that helps me. No.
So is this what Tues really wants to do? I'm just going to ask that question once.
I think I'm going to still do it.
All right, perfect.
I think I'm going to still do it. I will spend another 2 points of might to get some effort on this roll.
Okay.
And I will succeed. You tried to doubt me.
All right. So
Swayed.
You reach out to grab onto this thing, and this thing is like angled in such a way and moving forward. Describe to me what it looks like when this big bulky guy jumps on top of to mount and ride this watcher as it's heading towards this scrapper.
I think it's much more agile than anyone would have possibly expected out of Tues. I think he moves shacklingly light on his feet, similarly to like what we've seen when we've seen him like do his climbing and stuff. And he grabs onto this thing, and there's this moment where it like jerks him, and it seems like there's no possible way he's going to hold on, and it nearly rips his shoulders out of the sockets, but he hangs on and he hauls himself up and rides this thing off towards the scrapper. And that's my turn, I'm guessing.
That's going to be your turn, and I just have one question for Feyre. How do you feel about your watcher being ridden there?
How do I feel about that? I think it would be fine. It would be fine.
Okay. All right. What you see as that's happening, as Tues kind of mounts the watcher as it kind of pulls past, you lost sight of this thing as it went behind the machine, and somewhere behind that machine and then coming out and bolting towards that scrapper, you see a dangling sort of like, Tues just sort of hanging on, holding on to the back, and his legs are kind of flapping a little bit as this thing is moving incredibly fast. And we're going to cut to Krona. Krona, what are you doing, buddy?
How close is this one watcher that shot a beam at me?
It's just around the rock and machine that you basically you were standing on top of. So it's just on the other side of you. You're not quite sure where it is, though.
Okay, so I think Krona crawls up to the back of this cover and pulls from his belt a knife, and it, quivering in his hand, reaches over this rock and like pops out for a second and chucks it at him.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I'm going to remind you of something that was demonstrated for you to be able to do last session, which is activate your focus.
Yeah. Is that an action or
it's not going to be a full action just to be able to just activate it, right? If you want to use some of the abilities, definitely, but like it's not going to be an action for you to just activate it.
Okay. Yeah, I think with this knife in hand, activates this thing as like, okay, we were taught how to do this. I got this. I got to get the point. I got to get the weak spot. And so peek up just a little bit with it activated until the weak spot appears, and then.
All right. Well, so what happens here is you activate it as you're coming up off the situation. You're beginning to grab for your blade. You activate it, and you see the outline, sort of the bluish outline of the machine through the rock and the other machine as it's kind of angling there. And it's kind of like you could see its head's turning, and it's beginning to kind of slowly navigate its way around in its fashion. So it's moving towards you, towards the left. This gives you an opportunity to either hide or actually assess more about this thing and make an attack.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna attack because this thing is after me, right?
Okay, so I'm not going to. As you're kind of watching and assessing this thing, all the areas begin to light up on it, and you see that the eye stalk in front of the, on the head, and there's another sensitive spot on the body where you can slip your blade and it would do a serious attack. So the thing's comes moving around. It's beginning to kind of like move in your general direction. And you're going to make your attack. So go ahead and describe to us what that attack is going to look like.
Yeah, just popping out from behind this rock with a throwing knife and just whipping it, aiming for that spot, and wishing a silent prayer to the storm.
Difficulty 3, reduced by 1 because of the use of the focus. So you got a difficulty 2. Is there anything else that you're going to do to actually, reduce the difficulty?
It is going to be reduced by 1 because it's a light weapon. But I am going to expend effort on the damage in order to actually do a decent amount of damage.
So what's the damage on the blade, on the throwing knife?
I think it's 2 on light weapons.
2? Okay.
2. Yeah. Sorry guys, I'm like always getting tangled in the this rolling thing. It's kind of weird. All right, so a 3 difficulty. Not doing effort to roll, no asset, no cost, 1 effort to damage. There we go. Cool.
All right.
Sorry.
So this thing kind of rounds about, and describe what your throw looks like, and then I'll describe how it actually goes down.
Yeah, I think pops up and is holding the dagger quivering in his hand, but realizes that it's actually like he's holding the handle, so then like switches it around, and then like,
as you let loose, your nerves just all sort of like wiry and just like you're intense. You throw the knife and you let go almost too soon. And this thing just begins to round. But as it does, it notices your movement and immediately turns towards you as the blade lands right into the eye, takes this thing, it sparks an electricity, and then drops.
Yeah.
And you're kind of left there sort of shaking, kind of like in a little bit of a cold sweat. And you hear this like tinkling a little bit, and you realize that your entire body is shaking and it's causing all of your bells to tinkle. Just a little bit.
I think Krona starts shouting in order to get everybody's attention. They're like, I killed one! I took one of the watchers down! Did you guys see that? All the rest of them
turn towards him.
Yeah.
At which point, GM intrusion, you're going to get one Krona, go on XP, and you're going to give it to somebody else. The one that Tues had distracted, the scrapper, jumps up onto the sort of the machine and rock that's right there, and begins to sort of loom down at you as we cut to Tajak.
No.
Yeah, Tajak hums and walks away. He hums and walks towards the corruptor. He has a mission. It's to find more of these pieces. And Tues said, "I will hold them off so you can find more of these things."
That is what I said.
Yeah. So he.
I want to be on that team. Why am I not on that team?
And he just saunters casually over to the corruptor, and I'm gonna try to find the pressure plate.
So you walk up this little rise of like dirt and sort of charred earth, and you kind of come up and you see a whole other swath of like machines and stuff, and there's this corruptor sort of in the center. And as you're kind of looking at it, the corruptor is a little bit more damaged, but you can see that it's actually entwined with a body wearing the markings of a Nora sort of garb or whatever in its death blows. But you can see that the spear has actually been pushed into like sort of where the brain of this thing is, and so it's like a death embrace for the both man and machine. And so make me a roll as you begin to search for another one of these things.
Yeah, so as I walk up and see the corpse, I kind of like peek to the side. Is it wearing a focus?
No.
Okay. Then in that case, what's the difficulty for this override?
I believe we said it was difficulty 3 or 4. Was it? I think it was 3 last time.
Okay. So I have salvaging Numenera, I have understanding the Numenera, and that's right, because I just nailed it. And I have the focus, right? So that would be 4. That would be 3. So it's a 0. but I will give you a roll just to see if I get a nat 20. I don't, but I succeed. So I just kind of climb up like around, unfortunate. And then I kind of walk up underneath it, and I find the panel on one side to remove the one that like the same one that I removed, and then on my next turn I will look for the other panel, which I assume is on the other side, to remove the one that Teus punched out.
Right. So as you you begin to move your hands in under the sort of the thing, and you feel the click as it dislodges and comes in. You hear from a distance, "I got one," coming from Krona.
He's still alive.
And so we're gonna cut to the machines. As there's the one sort of scrapper that's kind of barreling towards the Watcher now, with Teus sort of riding back to it. You see another one. There's the other scrapper that's sort of like kind of like leering over its head over Krona. And its gears are beginning to grind Krona, and its eyes are like looking red, and the two Watchers are beginning to sort of right themselves as they're trying to get up. That the two that Pharaoh was able to use for player intrusion and kind of have a crash. So all of that's sort of going on, and so you kind of, Tejak, you pop that first override off, and you kind of step up and you look back over the rise at the situation to assess the situation, and up on the Deathbringer jumps a gigantic cat-like looking creature, which is a living sawtooth. It's a living sort of moving sawtooth. And as you are able to kind of observe it, the rest of you hear some sort of weird sort of grinding roar. And you all look up and you see this gigantic cat that looks like 3 times the size of, the scrappers. And it kind of roars and kind of assesses the situation and looks down, and its eyes are red. And that's where we're going to end it.
Oh, you shit.
Oops.
You shit. God damn it. All right. Okay. That was episode 3, Johnny. I get to be Krona this time, which is great. I get to do literally nothing, which is dope. So that was episode 3 of The Seekers. Guys, if you like Numenera, or what we call Numenera, and you like Horizon Zero Dawn, this is the one for you. It's going to be pretty cool. I'm enjoying this game. I'm enjoying this setting. And I'm enjoying everyone stumble through their first play of Numenera, which is always great. Because by the end of it, you'll be like, this is my favorite game ever. That's what happened to me. Let's go around, do our introductions, get the hell out of here, and go host one of our friends. We will start with Krona, who killed a guy this time. So, Keith, who are you? Where can we find you, and what are you up to?
I did, and I told a lot of stories. There was a lot of intelligent words that were said.
It's true.
I'm Keith. You can find me at Material Components on Twitch and at M Components on Twitter. We also do tabletop RPG streaming on Wednesday and Friday nights, and we're running some Numenera, some Fate, and whatnot. We also are the people behind the Heroes Guild, which is a local to Nashville organization teaching kids tabletop role-playing games and after-school programs. And we are designing our own Powered by the Apocalypse system that encourages heroic morality for use in that program for kids aged 6 and up. So stay tuned for that, and give us a follow if you are into that.
Hell yeah, man, that's awesome. Guys, go give that a follow. If you follow nothing else today, go give that a follow. That's super dope. I love when that's why I started this whole channel, is because I wanted to use D&D to help other people do other things, or tabletop in general. So to see other people branching out and doing that is super dope. That being said, we'll jump over to Kai. Who are you? Where can we find you? And what are you up to?
I am Kai, Stonefly Kai on Twitter and Twitch. I just restarted my Twitch channel, and I'll be doing art and all sorts of good painting minis, that kind of stuff on there. And you can see all the things I'm doing on my Twitter.
Yeah, that too. And Instagram. Go check out Instagram. I think it's Stonefly Kai.
I'm on Instagram too.
Yeah. And it's all dope art. And Kai in dresses. That's it. That's the only 2 things. It's Kai in dresses and dope art.
And art. Yeah. That's it.
If you want to see Sam in a dress, no. But really, Sam, who are you? Where can we find you on the internet? And what are you up to?
I'm Sam, twitch.tv/wizandfool, Twitter @thewizandfool. Unfortunately, as of right now, there's nowhere you can find me in a dress. Sorry for all of you out there.
Isn't that livejasmine.com's, /thewizandfool?
Oh, God.
That's the after show.
Oh, God.
I'm actually subscribed there.
Yeah.
The Twitch
You're waiting
is
for the Sam dress picture.
Twitch Prime sub.
I will shout out this week. I'm a moderator for this crazy, weird little role-playing experiment called Far Verona, which is a tie-in to ItBJP's channel, where we use the faction turn from the game Stars Without Number by Kevin Crawford, and use it as kind of a freeform role-playing and competitive board game world-building experiment. It is weird and wacky and doesn't always work entirely correct because it's an experiment, but it's a lot of fun and worth checking out if you're into that kind of thing. Yeah. I had a blast tonight. I always have a blast. I'm really super enjoying learning Numenera, and hopefully I will continue to roll well and not get trampled by machines and keep grabbing and riding them.
Let's hope so. But in charge of your trampling and the riding of dinosaurs, we'll go over to Johnny. Who are you? Where can we find you on the internet? And what are you up to?
Johnny, Video Store Cowboy everywhere except Twitter, which is a silly 15 character limit thing. So it's Vid Store Cowboy. You guys did amazing tonight. Again, the combat got a little bit more rough, and that was intentional. I wanted to make the first 2 episodes or something really straightforward and simple for you guys. And then I wanted to provide you with a little bit more of a challenge, and you guys are killing it so far. However, I will tell you that Sawtooth, he's a little bit more difficult than these other things that you're dealing with. So Chrono better run, buddy.
We already have
That's why we're running.
But yeah, you guys are doing great, and you can find me on my channel. I'm streaming more Horizon Zero Dawn as I finish up the storyline for the DLC. So come by and hang out and check that out.
Fantastic. With that, guys, if you want to support the channel, please, the only way to do that is our Patreon. Currently, we no longer do donations on tabletop games. So if you want to do that, there's all kinds of goodies, including the audio versions of all of our shows the day after they air. And if you want to be part of the community and part of the conversation, please go join us on our Discord. That being said, we are going to go raid our friend, the Bubbernaut, who's currently playing, I believe he's playing Pathfinder. He's definitely playing the Mummy's Mask. So go check him out. Send him all of your hot, sticky raid love. And from all of us to you guys, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.